every single day of your life, you have the opportunity to do the things that really matter and to be present. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Strong Stoic Podcast. I am your host. That's right, you know me, Brandon Tumblin. And I'm currently sitting through a snowstorm, so if you hear some wind howling, that's what that is. And it was a rough night, to be honest. So I'm up here in Canada, as I'm sure you probably know by now, but we got hit by a huge snowstorm, and it's been a little rough. It was a rough night. It was blowing all night. And anyways, but no, it's not bad enough that I'm contemplating the end of the world just for that. So I'm not having some kind of existential survival crisis over here. But certainly it's worth mentioning. But, I watched a movie last night called Don't Look Up. And it's on Netflix. And it's a very interesting movie, though not one that may make you feel good. It's sort of one of these half-depressing movies. And I've been pondering on the side of that, along with that, I've been pondering lately what it means to really live in life. Mostly because over the holidays here in Canada, the government shut down a lot of travel because of the COVID pandemic. And so it's interesting because many of people just flat out refused to follow these rules because they hadn't seen their family in years. Last Christmas got canceled and everybody stayed home. So it got to the point where everyone was like, you know what, screw it. I don't care. I am going home to see my family. And so, I've really been thinking about what we should be willing to sacrifice in terms of life. Like, what are we willing to sacrifice in order to live if maybe we're not even really living, right? It's an interesting conundrum and question to think about. And it's easy to justify short-term restrictions, such as, stay inside. There's a storm for the next couple of days, or maybe for the next 3 weeks, we're going to limit going out because, the pandemic just got started. But we're 2 years into this now, and we're all sort of reaching this point where it's like, okay, how many years are we willing to give up of our lives where we're just basically not really able to do the things that we want to do and see the people that we want to see, do the things that really, really matter to us. I'm not talking about like travel to Europe, unless your family's there. I'm talking about like the things that really matter, like getting home for Christmas. So it's getting to that point now. And so today I really want to talk about what it means to truly live. First, I want to mention my Patreon. If you like my content, please consider checking me out there. And for $5 a month, you can support me. I'd really, really appreciate that. Thank you to the sponsors who are already doing that. There's going to be some goodies on there too. There is some additional content. It's not content. It's just sort of previews of what the episodes are going to be. And there's going to be some freebies on there. Also, check out my articles on Medium, which that's where I write my articles. So if you want to check me out there, every episode I basically do a quick article on it, so it's really simple to read and easy to read, and it's a good reference if you like the content and want something a little bit more formal. Last thing is the Q&A I have coming up with Kai Whiting and Leonidas Konstantakos, which are the authors of Being Better, Stoicism for a World Worth Living In. If you have purchased that book, send me a DM or send me an email with you and the book or the receipt of the book, or even if you rented it from the library, loaned it from the library, that's fine too. Just, prove to me that you've actually, had a look and read the book, and then we'll put you in on the list for this Q&A that we're having, where you can ask the authors of that book basically anything about Stoicism. It doesn't have to be about the book. The book is about Stoicism, but any question you have on Stoicism, you can ask these guys who are very, very knowledgeable on the topic. So, moving on to the topic. The Greeks had this word, Eudaimonia, or Eudaimonia. It's pronounced several different ways based on who you're talking to. But basically what this word used to describe is what we should all be aiming for in life. And it translates roughly to flourishing, meaning, you're living a good life. You're flourishing, sort of like a flower flourishes. Today we might say happiness, right? Though we have to be careful with that term because happiness isn't something that we can really have all of the time. Personally, I like to translate eudaimonia to meaning, because it's when you are living a life that is so good that life suffering seems to be irrelevant. It doesn't seem to really affect you. You're not thinking about it. Now, different philosophies differ in how they think we can get there to that eudaimonia, right? That meaningful life. So there's Epicureanism, for example, which takes the approach of seeking pleasure in the form of friendship and learning and reducing pain. Somewhat sensualist, but not exactly. It's not as simple as that. But that's Epicureanism. It focuses on pleasure and friendship and all that. Then there's Stoicism, of course, which focuses on virtue, on excellence. To put it simply, Stoicism thinks the secret to happiness is by being a good person, which isn't easy. Doing the right thing, right? Having a good moral character, which a lot of times takes sacrifice, personal sacrifice for the greater whole. However, it's worth emphasizing that all philosophies try and get you somewhere. And through that, try and take you away from something else. Generally speaking, it's trying to make your life better in some way. So even if it might not be flourishing or eudaimonia in the way that you think about it, all philosophies are trying to move you towards something and take you away from something else. You can also think about that as like heaven or hell. So getting to the question of what it means to live. Well, we know roughly what the end game is, don't we? It's a state of flourishing, right? It's a meaningful life where suffering is irrelevant, because you can't take away life suffering, but maybe you can make it irrelevant. What we disagree on, we meaning different philosophers, I suppose, and psychologists, is the best way to actually get there. At the same time, even though we might disagree on the details, there does seem to be massive similarities between what is actually valuable in life. I had Jeremy Sherman on, who studied, origins of life, very knowledgeable guy in biology too, and he put it very scientifically, something like humans have to fit 3 environments. You have to feel good in your own skin, you have to feel good in relationship to everyone else around you, and you have to be aligned somewhat with reality. And that seems to echo through most philosophies, but also psychology as well. And it makes sense, right? Like if you think about it, we can't be happy isolated. So even if we are happy with who we are as an individual, but we're alone, we get very depressed. And that's been shown, there's a lot of evidence to support that. But we also can't be happy if we aren't somewhat aligned with who we fundamentally are. So if we're not living up to our own personal values, we're not going to feel very good, even if we fit in, with society. And we simply cannot survive if we are not aligned with the truth to a certain extent. And so being aligned sort of in these 3 environments with who you are as an individual, being happy with your own skin, being happy with your relationship to other people, and then being aligned somewhat with objective reality and truth, that is sort of what many philosophies aim to do. And Stoicism actually balances these things very, very well, though misinterpretations of Stoicism may not agree. But in Stoicism, there's a huge focus on you being aligned with your own nature, right? Live according to nature. There's a piece of that which is living in accordance with your own particular nature, meaning your personality, who you are as an individual, but also human nature, which sort of fits that, live according to nature, live according to human nature, which we all fundamentally share. So that's how you fit in with society and the world as a whole. And then obviously there's a huge emphasis in Stoicism on the search for truth and on understanding the reality of the situation as opposed to what maybe your impressions or your emotions are telling you. Marcus Aurelius, one of the famous quotes from Marcus Aurelius is, "What's bad for the hive is bad for the bee." And it's interesting now because moral psychologist Jonathan Haidt, in his book The Righteous Mind, he actually has this, he says we're 90%, I can't remember the other word he used, like 90% something, but 10% bee. And what he meant by that is that, we're an individual, we're 90%, I think reptile, maybe 90% reptile, we're 90% individuals, but 10% of us is like a bee, where we work to keep the hive thriving. And that's a huge part of human existence, is our society. And it's so interesting that echoes back to Marcus Aurelius. What's bad for the hive is bad for the bee. And Marcus Aurelius talks very often about how he considers himself in relationship to the whole. Again, this is a very big misconception of Stoicism. They think that it's a solely lonely pursuit, but it's not. It focuses on what you can do, because after all, you can only change what you do and think and feel. However, it's doing so in a way that is aligned with your reality and also aligned with the people around you and humanity as a whole, and doing the best thing, not just for you, but for you and everyone else around you. And of course, that's aligned with reality. And then the third there, reality. Obviously, this is a huge focus in Stoicism because it tries to rationalize everything, especially the emotions that you're feeling about something. Okay, so the point is that those three environments, feeling good in your own skin, feeling good with who you're surrounded with, and being in line with reality. Stoicism has a really great model for addressing that, which is very interesting. Not to say that others don't, but this is the Strong Stoic Podcast after all. Now, I'm going to, if you haven't seen this movie, Don't Look Up, I'm going to spoil the crap out of it right now, so you might want to pause and go watch it. Or if you don't care about spoilers, because some people don't care about spoilers, you can watch. But huge spoiler alert here. Basically, in this movie, there's some scientists that discover a huge planet-killing comet that's going to impact Earth, right? So you can imagine how scared you would be if you realize that. But they try and tell the U.S. president, they try and tell the media, the world, and no one seems to give a crap, right? The president, all she cares about is her polls and getting reelected. The media, all they care about is their numbers. They don't really care about some comment, They're just trying to get good ratings and good views. The corporate companies don't even care because they actually want to extract profits from the meteor. So they're willing to take this huge risk to extract profits from the meteor. And there are even theories that the comet isn't real. Isn't this like echoing sort of what we're going through today with the COVID pandemic? But it's basically, there are some people like, oh, the comet isn't real. It's all a big conspiracy. And so, of course, humanity as a whole, they shit the bed on this thing, right? They don't properly plan to destroy it or anything because they're focused on the wrong things. Their priorities aren't straight. And eventually, they see the comet. So, like five months after they discovered it and they're not doing anything about it, you can see the comet very far off into the stars. It's coming right for Earth. And so it's like, all you have to do is look up, man, and you see this comet. There were some failed attempts to send the rocket up to destroy it. So, they did try, and then they changed their mind at the last minute, blah, blah, blah. But it's different because now they actually see it. Now you can actually see the comet coming down. Yet, what does the president do? Well, the president ensures that it's all a fear tactic. Don't look up. Don't look at the truth. Don't look up. You're just going to be scared. There's no comet up there. What are you talking about? Of course, it's right in front of your eyes, people, right? Now, eventually, it's blatantly obvious because obviously the comet gets bigger as it gets closer to Earth. So now you cannot deny it in any way unless you don't look up, right? Which is why they said not to look up. They tried to send some rockets up at the last minute because the U.S. didn't do a good job managing it. So I think some other countries tried it, but it failed. So what ends up happening is you have this comet coming towards Earth, and the main character, the scientist, he comes to the conclusion that it's too late. So up until this point, the scientist is trying to do his best to inform the world, and he got swayed a little bit by politics and everything, and popularity. But he was trying to save the world. He's trying to turn things around. But eventually he's faced with the reality that it's too late and everyone is going to die. Like there's nothing they can do now. And so it's very interesting. Like I want you to sit with that for a minute. Like imagine knowing that there's a comet coming towards Earth and you got a couple days left to live. That's all you have. That's all you have. And you know that. The scientist, there's a certain point in the story where he knew there's no way that we can fix this thing now. We are all going to die. So up until this point, he's doing his best, but now he's just like, okay, I've accepted the fact that we are going to die. What would you do if you had a couple days left to live? I'm sure you've thought about this before, but if you haven't in a while, it's worth considering. Everyone is at political rallies. Everyone's on social media. There's anarchy in the streets. The world is basically falling apart because there's only a couple days left to live, or 1 day left to live at this particular moment. But this scientist actually gets a few of his friends and he goes grocery shopping. You think, why the hell are you going grocery? Man, the world is ending. What the hell are you doing? So the store is empty. He's here with his friends and he's literally like going through the aisles just like you normally would, just regular everyday thing. You're going through, he's like, hey, look at this. They have wild salmon. Hey, look, they have wild salmon. You can really tell the difference. Hey, look at this farmed salmon. Look at the difference between the wild salmon and the farmed salmon. Like, look at that. It's so different. Like, you can tell that this stuff is so bad quality. Puts it down. He gets the wild salmon in his cart. They're talking about what kind of potatoes should we get? I like, what's those small potatoes called? The fingerling potatoes. I want to get the fingerling potatoes. So they're there and they're picking out groceries and they're, talking about these little mundane things in life. Meanwhile, the comet's coming down. They only got 6 6 hours, 7 hours left to live. So what do? Well, they all go home, they make a big dinner with their family, they hug, they pray, they talk about all the little things in life, like, hey, I remember when I was a kid and this happened. Isn't that funny? Like, I was a little embarrassed about that, or, that was my proudest moment growing up. And, they're drinking coffee, and meanwhile, the world is just falling apart, right? Like, people in the streets ripping everything apart, there's explosions, there's gunfire, and they're just in this home, sitting around this table with their friends and family, and, this coffee is good. Well, John is very particular about his coffee. He grinds his own beans fresh. It's like, he does that for every cup of coffee every morning. He grinds his beans fresh. It's like, yeah, he's very particular. He likes a good cup of coffee, So, like, the world is literally ending, and there's 8 people just doing the regular things in life, talking about mundane activities, right? Of course, eventually the meteor comes and destroys the entire planet. And so there's no happy ending here. Everybody dies. But I'll ask you this question again. If you had 1 day or 2 days left to live before everyone died and you knew that was going to happen, what would you do? You'd probably want to be around those who love you, right? Like most people would say that, I want to go see my family. But not just that. You'd probably want to do the things that you do every day with the people you love. You'd probably want to go grocery shopping. You probably want to make a dinner, hug, talk about memories, talk about little stupid things that don't even matter in the grand scheme of things. At least we think they don't matter in the grand scheme of things. You're probably going to put your cell phone away. Why am I going to be on social media and I got 6 hours left to live? Let's spend some time with the family. Let's have a good dinner. Let's drink some good wine. Let's talk about the little things. What's really fascinating to me about this is that, dear friend, you get the opportunity to do these things every day. Every morning when you wake up, you get the opportunity to be present in this moment. You get to say good morning to your partner or to your kids or to your mother or your father. You get to say good morning to someone that loves you and that you love them. You get to go grind some fresh coffee beans, and you get to make a great cup of coffee, and you get to sip on that wonderful cup of joe. Every day you get to go to the grocery store, cook a dinner. Every day you get to talk with people you love. This is the real beauty in life, isn't it? These little daily things that all too often we think of them as tasks. Oh, I have to go make coffee. Oh, I need to go to the grocery store. Oh, I need to cook dinner tonight. The one message I really want you to hear, dear listener, is that wherever you are, every single day of your life, you have the opportunity to do the things that really matter. Like, goals are important. Success is important. Excellence is important. That's why I talk about those things so often. But it's those daily little things in life that you do on the road to success, on the road to happiness, on the road to eudaimonia. It's those little moments that you have to be present, that we take for granted every day. That's what's essential to living a good life. It's being present. It's living in this moment. And not necessarily living for this moment. You're living for the future. Of course, in this case, the comet's coming, so, okay, there is no future. So let's live in the moment, for the moment. But you live in the moment, even if you do have goals, even if success is an important thing. Every single day of your life, you have the opportunity to do the things that really matter and to be present in those moments. I'm going to end with a quote. There's a scene where Charlie Brown and Snoopy they're sitting on a wharf and they're looking out at the water. So all you see are their backs. And Charlie Brown says, "One day we will die, Snoopy." And Snoopy replies, "Yes, but every other day we will live." Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope I didn't alarm you with the title, The End of the World. It's not the end of the world, but it will be someday, so keep perspective on what's most important in life. If you want to support me, check me out on Instagram, reach out to me there, check out my website, brandontumblin.com. Leave me a rating review wherever you're listening to this. I would very much appreciate that. Not going to bug you anymore today. Thanks again so much. Cheers. Until next time.